I used to think that the show must go on was just something people said on motivational posters. Then I watched a video of Lionel Richie, 77 years old, one of the best-selling recording artists in American history, a man with a $200 million empire behind him, sit down on a stage platform at Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, Minnesota, on June 24, 2026, in the middle of dancing on the ceiling, and tell a sold-out arena that he felt dizzy. And the first thing that went through my mind was not concern, it was a number. Because I knew, the way anyone who has ever watched a tour fall apart knows, that the moment a legend sits down mid-show is the moment the money starts bleeding. Lionel Richie, 77 years old, opening night of a 30-city co-headlining arena tour, the kind of moment that, once it happens, sets every financial and algorithmic clock in the touring industry ticking at once. The date was June 24, 2026, 4 days exactly after Lionel Richie's 77th birthday. The venue was Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, Minnesota, opening night of his co-headlining tour with Earth, Wind & Fire, a run called Sing a Song All Night Long. Tickets had been moving for months. The secondary market was averaging $430 a seat, figures that were showing up in Polestar's weekly box office reports before the first date even played. 30 cities, arena-level production. The kind of tour that for a legacy artist does not come around every year, and everyone in that building on June 24th knew it. About an hour into his set, 9 songs deep, Richie slowed. He sat down on a platform near the front of the stage. The band kept playing for a moment. Then the band stopped, and Richie told the crowd, and this is documented, this is not embellished. He told them, "When you're feeling dizzy, sit your ass down." The crowd laughed because Lionel Richie in front of a microphone is still, at 77, someone who can make a room laugh. He moved to the piano. He played 3 times a lady from his seat, and then he announced what he called an intermission and walked off the stage. He did not come back. 40 minutes later, with the house lights still up and 6,000 people standing in an arena holding their phones, a member of his band, his saxophonist Dino Soldo, walked out and delivered the news. Lionel Richie was not feeling well. He would not be finishing the show, and local fire department records confirmed that an adult male was transported by ambulance from Grand Casino Arena to a nearby hospital as a precautionary measure that night. The specific hospital was never named. The specific reason was never officially released. What we got instead was a single secondhand remark from Earth, Wind & Fire drummer John Paris, who told the Minnesota Star Tribune that he believed Richie had been a little dehydrated. Paris also noted to his credit that he did not know Richie's official health status, and that is the entire medical record that exists on this. One bandmates read, "No physician statement, no release from Richie's team, no post from Richie himself. As of the time I am making this video, Lionel Richie has not publicly addressed what happened in that arena." The last thing his social media showed from that day was a pre-show message thanking his band and crew and telling the world that St. Paul was next. So we have a dizzy spell, a hospitalization by ambulance, and total silence from the man himself. Which means the actual story here is not the diagnosis. It's everything around the diagnosis. The career it threatened, the money already in motion, and the health history that his own team has spent decades managing in the background. Because here is what people do not factor in when they watch a moment like the one in St. Paul. Lionel Richie's body has been in negotiation with his career since the 1990s. This is not speculation. He has said it himself on the record in multiple interviews. In the early 90s, he developed a throat condition that his doctors could not identify. He went through 4 separate surgeries over the course of roughly 4 years. 4 times they went in. 4 times the problem came back. At one point, the conventional medical establishment told him there was a real possibility he could lose his voice permanently. That is not a dramatic interpretation. That is what he described in his own words to People magazine in 2022, calling the experience about as close as you ever would have come to a nervous breakdown. His voice, he said, is his identity. The resolution was almost absurdly undramatic. A holistic doctor eventually identified the problem as acid reflux caused by eating before bed. Richie changed his eating schedule. The surgery stopped. He kept his voice. But the fact that it took 4 operations to arrive at stop eating so late tells you something about how quietly and how seriously The physical costs of 50 years in this industry accumulate. In 2014, he disclosed a hip replacement. Years of performing in platform boots with the Commodores, he explained, had left him with arthritis and structural damage to the joint. In 2017, he tore his meniscus and underwent knee surgery, postponing a stadium tour with Mariah Carey. He said at the time that he feared the injury would end his career. He said it plainly. He does not cancel tours. He does not cancel shows. And then, because his knee required it, he did exactly that. And in his 2025 memoir titled Truly, he disclosed an ADHD diagnosis that he had been living with for years without publicly acknowledging it. That is the health history. Vocal cords, hip, knee, ADHD, and now, at 77, a dizzy spell severe enough to require an ambulance. None of this is invented. All of it is documented. And none of it has ever been connected to a single overarching narrative. Because Lionel Richie has always managed his medical life the way he manages everything else, quietly, professionally, and with a studied refusal to let the audience see the machinery. Which brings us to the part of the story that nobody talks about when these moments happen. Not the diagnosis, the dollars. Here is how this actually works when a major touring artist goes down mid-run. First, the immediate show. That night in St. Paul, roughly 6,000 people had tickets. Arena production at that level, sound, lights, staging, crew, buses, hotels, does not pause when a headliner sits down on a platform. The costs of that night are already spent the moment the first truck parks outside the venue. Whatever insurance recovers, the logistics of that evening are a write-off. Second, the postponed shows. Live Nation and United Center announced the following day that Richie's June 26th date in Chicago and his June 27th date in Columbus, the next two stops on the tour, were being postponed on doctor's advice. Not canceled, postponed. And that distinction is doing a lot of financial work in that sentence. Major tours carry what the industry calls non-appearance insurance, typically underwritten by specialty carriers. Lloyd's of London is the most historically prominent name in this space, but specialist syndicates like Beasley and Hiscox have become increasingly significant players in the high-value touring market over the last decade. Illness is a covered peril under most of these policies. The standard structure covers roughly 75 to 85% of the artist's guaranteed fee, with proceeds designed to absorb committed production costs, crew wages, bus leases, venue deposits, the kind of expenses that exist whether the show happens or not. For a 30-city arena tour, those numbers move into the millions before the first ticket is ever scanned. But the critical detail is the postponement structure. When you postpone, you are not canceling revenue, you are deferring it. The ticket holders keep their tickets, the box office keeps the money, the rescheduled dates once announced recover the bulk of what was temporarily on hold. Compare that to a full cancellation and you are talking about an entirely different financial category. Madonna's 2023 bacterial infection, the one that put her in the intensive care unit for several days in late June of that year, forced the postponement of the Celebration tour that reportedly cost millions in already committed production deposits. Yet the tour itself, once rescheduled, went on to become one of the highest grossing tours in history, a number Pollstar's annual box office rankings confirmed. The machine absorbs the disruption. The machine keeps running. Bruce Springsteen's 2023 peptic ulcer disease postponement followed a similar arc. 14 remaining shows moved to 2024, insurance in place, rescheduled dates eventually sold through. Willie Nelson at 91 and 92 has been canceling and postponing dates per doctor's orders for the better part of 2 years, with his son Lucas stepping in to fill some of the gaps, and the business keeps functioning because the catalog, the brand, and the royalty income do not require Nelson to physically stand on a stage. And it is worth noting the broader pattern here. Elton John ended his 50-year touring career in 2023 specifically because his body could no longer sustain the physical demands of arena performance. Phil Collins announced his retirement from live performance citing deteriorating health. These are not outliers, these are the destinations that 50-year careers in live music tend to point toward. And every artist of Lionel Richie's generation is somewhere on that same road, which is the other piece of the Lionel Richie financial picture that rarely gets discussed in the context of a health scare. The man has built a $200 million empire that does not depend on him finishing a show in St. Paul. His estimated net worth, $200 million according to Celebrity Net Worth, a figure echoed by Forbes via Parade in May of this year, is not primarily a touring number. His seat on American Idol, which he has held since 2018, has reportedly generated somewhere in the range of $10 million per season. His publishing catalog, which he signed to Universal Music Publishing Group exclusively in 2025, is estimated to generate $8 to $10 million per year in passive royalties, all night long. Hello. Say You, Say Me, Endless Love, a co-write on We Are the World. These songs are not going to stop earning money because their author fell dizzy in Minnesota. The Beverly Hills mansion he bought in 1999 for $6 million is now estimated to be worth between $40 and $60 million. The touring income is real and meaningful, and when 2 arena shows disappear from a 30-city run, that is not nothing. But it is also not the story of a man whose financial life is in jeopardy because of a postponement. It is the story of a man who built the kind of catalog and the kind of diversified income that exists precisely to survive moments like this one. Here is the part I keep coming back to though. I said at the beginning that when I watched that video, Lionel Richie sitting down on that stage platform, 77 years old, mid-song, the first thing I thought about was the money. And I want to be straight with you about that, because I think it says something uncomfortable about how we watch famous people. We talk about net worth numbers and tour grosses and insurance structures because it gives us a framework for understanding a moment that is at its core pretty human. A 77-year-old man felt strange in front of thousands of people. He sat down, he tried to keep going, and then he couldn't. He has been doing this, performing, recording, managing his body through the physical demands of a 50-year career, longer than most of the people in that arena have been alive. And the thing he said to the crowd before he walked off the stage, the "sit your ass down" line, was not bravado. That was someone who has learned, through 4 throat surgeries and a hip replacement and a torn knee and a diagnosis he kept private for years, that the body is not a negotiating partner. The financial machinery around Lionel Richie will absorb this. The insurance will pay. The dates will reschedule. The catalog will keep earning. The empire built across 50 years of songwriting and performing, and lately judging a television talent competition does not come apart because of 2 postponed shows in Chicago and Columbus. But the health history, the part his team has always managed quietly, the part that he only started talking about publicly in the last few years, that is the story the June 24th incident is actually pointing at. Not a secret he's hiding, a real body with a real record, doing the work it has always done, at an age when the math starts getting honest with everyone. I started this thinking about the money. I'm ending it thinking about the boots. Platform boots, he said, from the Commodore's era. That was what gave him the hip condition. The years of performing in shoes that made him taller than he was. The price of the show, paid later, in a surgical suite. I keep coming back to that. The things that cost you most are rarely the things that look like emergencies.